Hi, I'm Roxy. What you're watching in the background of my voice is the conceptualization and later inking of an elephant gargoyle. Why? Because it's Inktober, that's why. You've probably heard of it. After all, it's been going on for 13 years now, but for the sake of clarity, I'll give a quick explanation. So there's this illustrator, Jake Parker, highly skilled, and I'm not overselling him. His work is really special. In fact, I'll put a link to his gallery in the description so you can check it out. You'll see what I mean. But anyway, back in October 2009, Jake had this idea to improve his inking skills, where he decided he was going to do one ink drawing every day of the month as a practice, and he called it Inktober. This challenge became a yearly ritual where thousands of artists would join him every October, and social media feeds would get flooded with everybody's daily hashtag Inktober drawings. In 2016, he started putting out an official prompt list so that artists wouldn't have to spend time thinking about what to draw. They could just look at that day's prompt, maybe grab some reference and start sketching. For example, for the prompt on this day of 1 October 2022, it's gargoyle. So at first I toyed with the idea of maybe sketching a gargoyle from the original Ghostbusters movie. But then I thought, nah, I want to create something new. So, and maybe something African, seeing as I live in South Africa. So that's how I came up with the idea of the elephant gargoyle. So I just looked at some pictures of elephants and some pictures of gargoyles, and then just let my imagination do the rest. So if you're watching this video today, go on to Instagram or Twitter and search for hashtag Inktober, and you'll be scrolling for days. You might not even bump into mine. You're just going to be inundated with just tons of gargoyles. It's fun to be part of something like this, but it's time consuming. I guess it can take as long as you want it to, but if you only spend 5 minutes, it might not look great and then you might not want to post it. I spent about 45 minutes on this, excluding all the time I spent looking for reference and just staring at the drawing while the gears in my brain were spinning. Obviously this footage is a little sped up because I don't have 45 minutes worth of talking to do, but the point is it can take time, and time you don't necessarily have, so don't feel obliged to do a drawing every day, even if that's what the rules say. Maybe you can only do one per week or even one for the whole month. It shouldn't stop you from taking part if you want to. Unless you're getting paid for it, art should never become a point of stress. So that's the gist of it, but I guess we also have to talk about the drama. Scandal number 1 that happened in 2019, Jake Parker, as the guy was telling you about who invented it, trademarked the Inktober brand. And people didn't know it at the time, but he had been working on an inking book that he was going to call Inktober all year long. It was about like a tutorial on inking. And I guess prepping for the book launch, he had his lawyer send cease and desists to people who were profiting off the Inktober brand with their own books and merch. It makes sense to me. He probably didn't want his fans mistakenly buying other people's Inktober books, thinking they're supporting him when those books aren't even related. But of course, Twitter erupted over this. You know how the folks on Twitter are. They get half a story and then they're out with the pitchforks. People were making outrageous statements like, you're going to get sued if you use the Inktober hashtag, and Jake's so greedy and he just wants to monetize the challenge, so you'll have to pay to take part, and he's not a true artist because all he cares about money, blah blah, vitriol. He had to come out and do a statement and explain about his reasons. I'll put a link in the description of the video so you can read it. But to paraphrase, he wanted to officially take ownership of what he created so that he could control how that brand is used and protect its reputation. He reiterated that the challenge is always free to partake in, that anyone can carry on using the hashtag, just don't use his logo and profit off of it, which is completely fair. But there's this misconception out there that artists aren't allowed to charge for stuff, or they're somehow sellouts if they try to, make money. I think probably most of the sentiment comes from kids who still live with their parents and have no concept of the fact that one has to actually make money in order to eat and pay rent. So that was scandal number 1. Then the next scandal was the following year in 2020. Jake's soon-to-be released book, Inktober All Year Long, gets placed on Amazon with a few sample pages. It wasn't available to purchase yet. I guess it was just for pre-orders. And another artist, Alphonso Dunn, also a great artist, but very different style. But that's neither here nor there. Anyway, Alphonso has 2 inking books of his own on Amazon. Pen and Ink Drawing, a simple guide, and Pen and Ink Drawing, a workbook. So Alphonso is busy checking out his own products on Amazon, and he sees Jake's Inktober book. And he has a look through the sample pages and decides the samples look too much like the stuff that he has in his own books. So wanting to investigate further, Alphonso finds a video of Jake doing a 30-second flip through of his yet unpublished Inktober book. And Alphonso watches it frame by frame, and from this he decides that Jake's gone and ripped off his books, and in his mind purposefully ripped off his books, because he knows from a previous Instagram post of Jake's that Jake is a fan of his own pen and ink book. So Alphonso Dunn posts this video on YouTube called Jake Parker Plagiarized My Book, in which he goes through page by page, talking about the similarities and his disappointment. And I couldn't find the video online anymore, so I think he took it down, but there's plenty of snippets from it still in Ethan Becker's investigative video, which was really good. I'll post a link to that in the description as well. If you watch that, Ethan compares the 2 books, as well as a bunch of other art books and tutorial type things taken from the internet. And from what I saw, there's a lot of similarities. Like, I think it's safe to say that Jake took inspiration from Alphonso's book. I'll even go so far as to say that he made a book about his reinterpretation of Alphonso's book. That's how similar they are. But there's no straight copying. There's no sentence that's exactly the same. There's no drawing that's exactly the same. There's no layout that's exactly the same. The presentation of ideas are the same. You can see that very clearly from Ethan Becker's side-by-side comparisons. Other art books mostly present those ideas differently, or at least the ideas would be spread out across different pages, whereas Jake's and Alphonso's books are the same in how the topics are grouped and presented. So I would be pretty angry if I was Alphonso, because I know how long it takes to plan a book. That's where most of the time actually takes. But is it technically plagiarism, though? Presenting topics the same way and virtually the same order? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. But I did find out that Alphonso Dunn did go on and he laid charges against Jake Parker. So I did some investigative journalism, and I managed to find the court dockets and the decision made by the courts. I'm going to level with you here. I could barely understand it. We all know how friendly legal documents are. So my eyes were glazed over half the time, and I skim read more than anything. But from what I gather, they never even got to the point of comparing the 2 books for plagiarism. The case seemed to be harping on about jurisdiction, and it looks like it was dismissed because Jake's book hadn't actually been sold. And I do see that it's been removed from Amazon, and you can't really seem to buy it from anywhere, so it looks like the book has been cancelled. If you can speak legal, I've posted links to the court documents in the description of the video. Do us a favor and let us all know if I've interpreted it correctly or if I'm just making up nonsense. Entirely plausible. I can only tell you from my non-legal, remember the human point of view, I think Jake should have at least listed Alphonso's book as a credit in the bibliography, and I think Alphonso could have at least contacted Jake directly instead of making a public plagiarism claim. I mean, the book wasn't out yet, so there was still time to make changes. They could have negotiated between them about removing things that were too similar, or maybe Jake could have offered a co-authorship or at least proper crediting. I feel like we could have had a happy ending, but instead all we get is Twitter out with the pitchforks again. And not to mention 2 great artists wasting money on legal action. Still, Inktober carries on without them. And here's my elephant gargoyle. I'm not going to win any inking competitions for it, but it was fun. It is always fun to participate in this kind of thing, being part of a community. If you don't want to participate in Inktober, specifically, there's plenty of other art challenges. I announce them all on my Discord on the 1st of each month, or as they happen, so feel free to join if you think you might want to keep abreast of that type of thing. Link in description. But thanks for watching. Much obliged if you leave a like and subscribe. Until the next one, God bless.